How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.
And in 2023, he was convicted of 4 counts of sexual assault in a Toronto court. That letter we're talking about said there was evidence linking the former prince to both Nygard and Epstein in separate sex trafficking investigations.
Poor Queen Elizabeth is rolling over in her grave at the absolute shame that has been brought to her most important residence.
Pretty sure this picture is a fake, but let's find out who is in the Epstein files. If CBC is going to give us a straight story, let's take a peek.
Oh, yeah.
And several Canadians are also mentioned in the latest document released in connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Albert Delatala is tracking that story for us. Not the context, I think, in which we want to see Canadians mentioned. Talk to me about what do we know?
Certainly not. And one of those Canadians has been in the news a lot here in Canada, and that is disgraced fashion mogul Peter Nygard. And it's in relation to an April 22, 2020 letter from the U.S. Department of Justice to UK authorities. And it details an FBI and U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York request to get an interview with then Prince Andrew about possible connections to Nygard. Nygard, of course, has faced numerous sexual assault allegations in different jurisdictions. And in 2023, he was convicted of 4 counts of sexual assault in a Toronto court. That letter we're talking about said there was evidence linking the former prince to both Nygard and Epstein in separate sex trafficking investigations. Specifically, it said Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor had visited Nygard's luxury property in the Bahamas at least once. In that letter, it says Nygard is believed to have trafficked minor and adult female victims there. It said authorities wanted to ask the then prince about that visit or visits and anything else he knew about Epstein or related people. It also noted, important to note, that Mountbatten-Windsor was not under investigation at the time, and there was no evidence he had committed a crime. Now, those documents also detail 2 unnamed Canadians. They were both, but they're in allegations made in August 2020, both of those. One FBI document detailed a person described as a Serbian-Canadian lingerie model actress allegedly involved in a 1996 plot to introduce a woman to Epstein. And then the other Canadian name was also unnamed, and it described a jewelry designer and aspiring model who was Canadian involved in a similar plot. So, Deanna, thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of pages still to be released. So we'll keep tracking to see if there are more Canadian connections here.
Thank you so much for that, Albert. That's CBC's Albert Delatala. Let's stay on this story now and bring in Joe Moreno. He's a former U.S. federal prosecutor. He joins us from Washington this morning. Joe, always a pleasure speaking to you, although I wish it was on a happier subject. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Hi, Deanna. Happy to join you.
Joe, we just heard our reporter Albert talking about Peter Nygard, a very infamous figure here in Canada. He's serving an 11-year sentence in prison right now on multiple counts of sexual assault. What does all of this mean for the former fashion mogul, given that he's already serving time for sexual assault?
Well, Deanna, probably not a whole lot. I mean, maybe there'll be some additional facts that didn't come out at trial or during the prosecution that we now learn. It's unlikely, though, that it would lead to any additional charges. You have to think that prosecutors went through these investigative files thoroughly and used the evidence that was provable in court. So it might be embarrassing, it might be salacious. We might learn things about him and other global figures that we didn't know, perhaps. But I'm not really sure in practical terms if there's any other legal action that can be taken, other than possibly private lawsuits that may have not already been pursued.
Joe, moving on to other people mentioned here, I mean, most notably the U.S. President Donald Trump, who has quite a few mentions in this most recent batch of documents, including being with Epstein on a private jet with the only passengers were Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and an unidentified 20-year-old. We know that Donald Trump said on the weekend, hey, just because I'm mentioned doesn't mean that any wrongdoing was done. Lots of people, including myself, Bill Clinton, and others hung out with this guy. He had all the parties. What do you make of this? Like, what are the potential repercussions to Donald Trump?
Well, again, I think it's more embarrassment. I think it shows that his relationship with Epstein was perhaps even deeper than we already were aware of. Same with Bill Clinton. I mean, it's embarrassing. I'm not sure, again, there's much action to be taken. Obviously, Epstein's relationships were very broad. Obviously, there were probably even more details about what he did and with which women and with perhaps underage minors that we didn't previously know about. I hope to think that our justice system exhausted every lead and all evidence, and when there were charges to be brought, they did it, and they didn't ignore anything that was provable in court. But again, at the end of the day, these are old facts, so perhaps not things that the president would like to see come to light, but I'm not really sure there's anything more that can be done about this.
There's no smoking gun as of now. Let's talk a little bit about the redactions, which are many. And we're hearing that some people have found technological hacks, if you will, to unredact some of the stuff that has been redacted. There's so many redactions, and it looks like so many more will appear in the documents yet to come, that the DOJ has asked career prosecutors, frankly, people like you, to volunteer their time and redact further. Can you explain to me, is this a common procedure? From my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the only things that should have been redacted were those related to the identities of the potential victims. Why is there so much a redaction?
Well, Deanna, none of this is common practice. We don't typically reveal investigative materials like this, other than what's been introduced and proven in court. So this is very unusual, particularly an investigation that goes back effectively 20 years. So you expect there's going to be hundreds of thousands of documents and other information that investigators and prosecutors compiled over the years that were never actually brought to light. The law that was passed by Congress a few weeks ago that requires the revealing of these files provides 5 categories of authorized redactions. They include things that could impede future investigations. They include identities of victims. They include graphics or portrayals of violence or other salacious type materials. And so there are redactions that are authorized. I understand the public is eager for this information. And whenever you see those black boxes, particularly when they cover entire pages, you say, what's being hidden there? But keep in mind, this is a very, very long and thorough process. When you think about lawyers at the Justice Department that have to go line by line through these documents and exhaustively look at whether or not anything is subject to one of those 5 redaction categories that are authorized, it takes a long time. So again, having worked at the Justice Department, I like to give the benefit of the doubt that the delay here is because they're being thorough and any redactions are authorized. But again, this is why we typically don't do this sort of thing, because it seems like no matter what's revealed, people are never going to be happy.
Another thing that I found unusual, but again, it might not be, it's just that we as the public are so unaccustomed to this process, Joe, was the DOJ mentioned yesterday that just because you saw something, it doesn't mean that it's true. In fact, that there will be lots of tidbits of documents and materials that have been since proven during the investigation to be false. We know that there was an alleged letter from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar that has been proven by the DOJ to be false, and they're telling people to disregard it. Talk to me a little bit about that. When just because people are seeing names or pictures in the documents, it doesn't necessarily prove the veracity of that document, correct?
Well, again, Deanna, this is why we don't do this, because let's say you had some association with Jeffrey Epstein 20 years ago, and the FBI came and interviewed you, and it turned out you had absolutely no knowledge about what was going on, no involvement, nothing like that. And now your name comes up, right? 20 years later that the FBI spoke to you. So now people are going to say, well, why was this person spoken to? What did he or she actually know what was going on? And the person could be completely innocent, but now their name is thrown out in the public from years and years ago. So again, I get the public's desire for information, but this is not common practice because we don't reveal people's names that had potentially nothing to do with the actual crime that was prosecuted in court.
Just quickly, because we're running out of time, but I mean, do you think that this is a dangerous precedent, that essentially the DOJ caved to the public pressure?
Deanna, I do. It wasn't just the DOJ, it was Congress. And again, I understand people want information, people, especially in a case like this that's been going on for 2 decades. But now that we've done it once, why wouldn't we do it for any kind of major salacious investigation about a public figure? So I don't love it. I understand the need for transparency, but this is setting a dangerous precedent, and I don't know why we wouldn't do it now in the future with other cases.
Joe, thank you so much for your time and expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Deanna.
Former U.S. federal prosecutor Joe Morano.
Just last month, Andrew was the subject of an email request from the Met Police to the FBI. The Met later said it would not open a criminal investigation into the claims. We have approached Andrew's representatives about the latest documents, but had no response.
Poor Queen Elizabeth is rolling over in her grave at the absolute shame that has been brought to her most important residents. Even here in the United States, we understand the importance of the Christmas tradition and holidays in the United Kingdom and how that held such a special place for Her Majesty and the royal family. To see Sandringham disgraced with these photos, it's very disappointing here on this side of the ocean, but I'm certain over in the UK, people are absolutely crushed.
It has been a scandal that the royal family have this year taken their own action to try to shut down. In October, he was forced to stop using his titles, the king then going even further, Andrew no longer to be known as a prince and forced to move out of Royal Lodge. His proposed new home on the Sandringham estate, where he has historically joined them for Christmas, just increases the spotlight, though, on the royals.
Oh, yeah.
All right, folks, what do you think? Is Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, guilty as sin? Kind of looks that way. Looks like a bunch of people are guilty around this one. Maybe we'll find out in the future. Anyhow, like, share, subscribe, get your Canadian federal politics right here. Smash the like, hit subscribe, check out one of the other videos. We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching this one. Ciao for now.